Hey guys, I have this lieutenant I found in my guys, and I use him a lot, but he's not really all that painted, and he's on a small base still. So I was going to do a video on how I'm basing my Imperials now, and I figured why not use this guy as the example. So today what I'm going to be using clippers to get this guy off of his old base, glue to glue him onto his new base. I use the purple kind, but you can use whatever works for you. I have a 32mm base I'm going to put him on. And then for paints, I have Astrogranite, Nuln Oil, Hexos Pale Sun, and then Abaddon Black. And I'm only using two brushes. I'm using a Citadel medium shade and a small dry brush. And then I'm also using a little knife tool that I have. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take this Astrogranite and scoop it out of here and just pile it onto that base. So this is what I use the knife for. This knife has a really good shape for this. You can pretty much use whatever. Like honestly, a popsicle stick would probably work really well. Pretty much a normal stick, anything you got laying around, you just need to be able to get it on the base. And I'm trying to spread it evenly along the top here, at least at first, just to make sure it covers the whole thing. I've put a lot on here. I might not need as much as I've used, but with this stuff, too much is better than not enough, in my opinion, because when you put too little on it, you'll end up with these patches where there's just pigment. So like just paint on the base, and then you'll get these patches where there's actual texture. Okay, so it's smoothed out. So for this part, you can really use anything. I just kind of use my finger and I just dab it just to give a rough shape of how I want it, and then I'll take my knife tool and then rough it up a little bit. But remember, you don't want to make this too uneven, because this is a base. You're going to have to get someone who's supposed to be standing flat on it to stand on it. So having a little bit of character is good, but too much can be a pain. And then next, while it's still wet, I'm going to take it out of here. And you can use a paper towel. I'm just going to use my finger because, again, I'm kind of lazy. I'm just going to run my finger along the edge, parallel with the side of the base. And that way, I rub off any texture while it's still wet. And you'll see there's this little lip now that's kind of forming over here. And again, just tap that down. And so this is what it looks like right now. And I'm just going to leave this to dry for a while. And I'm going to go put it out in the sun. Okay, so I set my base outside to dry. And you want to do this when it's warmer or in a warm place, just because the bases do take a long time to dry, especially if you're putting a lot of the stuff on. But while it's drying, I figured I would show you the super easy way to take a guy off a base if he's stuck on there pretty good. So if you can't pry him off, which usually you can with Space Marines if you didn't put a lot of glue on, you can always take clippers and put the flat side down and then run it right under the foot and make sure it's parallel with the base. And what you're doing is you're essentially driving a wedge under the foot, and then you do that just to both feet and it'll pry them up. You got to be careful though, because sometimes you see right there at the side of the foot, it took a tiny bit of plastic off, but that's no big deal. That's really easy to fix actually. But sometimes if you're not careful, you can actually mess up the feet a little bit, so it is a little bit risky to do it this way. It's just really easy though. And now I have another 25mm base for a guardsman or something. Okay, so it has been a while that this has been drying, and I got a little impatient, so I'm just going to keep going. I textured it a little bit more after it dried a little bit. You can really kind of customize how it looks. But the next step, I'm going to take my Citadel shade brush. I'm just going to load it up with Nuln Oil, just a ton of it. And then just kind of slather it onto the base. I'm just going to use a lot. So I'm just going to get it all on there first. And just kind of spread it out so it goes in all those little cracks. And it'll help a lot because right now it's all just monotone gray. But with this and all the cracks, it'll help it kind of stand out. You can already see how the lower spots are looking darker. And this step is really fast, actually. I'm almost done already. And it doesn't matter if you swap it all over the place. It's really thin. It won't make much of a difference. But yeah, so that step's already done, and you can already see that it makes a big difference. So once again, we gotta wait for this to dry, and when it's dry, I will come back. Okay, so my Nuln Oil has dried all except for in one tiny little spot right there, but that's okay. And you can really see how it's getting the two-tone color right now. So what we're going to do next is we're going to dry brush it with Helios, or Hexos Pale Sun. I don't know why I keep saying Helios. So the trick with this is to get a little bit on your brush. That's actually way too much. And then kind of work it into the bristles so you have a reserve inside. And it really does help to use an actual dry brush. And GW does make good ones. They're expensive, but they're quite nice. And so when you're dry brushing, less is more. You could always add more. You can never take away any that you've already put on. So you want to just really gently oh, alright, I'm already using a little much. Just kind of brush the highest spots. Just work your way. Start out with a little. Just add more if you think you need it. But you can really see how it's starting to make it pop. And you can really use any color for this step, or the shading step too. So you can use like a green shade to give it kind of that green undertone. Like it's kind of mossy looking. I'm just going with the yellow to kind of make it stand out from the gray a little bit. And I'm just gonna hit the edges too. Can't forget the edges. And just like with the shade too, don't worry about getting it on the base. It's not a big deal. We'll take care of that later. I'm just gonna put a little more on there. I decided this base is gonna have a lot. And so that's what it looks like. For this next part, I went and I grabbed a Atlas beater brush I have. It has a pretty big end on it. And you can use this, or if you have a Citadel small base brush, you can use that as well. I mislocated mine, but this will work just fine. There's absolutely no problem with this. In fact, it might work better. And so I'm going to take Abaddon Black, just hit the edge right where it should have been black. I'm actually going to take it out of here very carefully. And then just go all the way around and just cover that gray and whatever paint or Nuln Oil is left on there. And you can use a lot of paint when you're doing this. Just try not to get streak marks in it if you can, but if there are a few, it doesn't really matter. Anything really looks better than just the gray sitting on there. So I'm starting to run out of paint, so I'm going to go back to the beginning, pull that out a little bit. But yeah, that's already a lot better. And again, you can do this in any color you want. So this is what it looks like finished. It's still drying, but it looks a lot better. It contrasts a lot more. If you're going with like a different color base on your model, feel free to do it whatever color. I have Tech Priests that I do red just so they're really easy to see from afar, stuff like that. But I'm just doing these guys black because it matches all the other bases I have. So we're going to wait for this to dry, and then once it's dry, I'm going to put it back on the pedestal and we're going to glue the model down. Okay, so we have our base back on here, and we have this guy. And I always test fit how they sit before I glue them. So you would sit something like that, and that looks fine to me. So when I glue Space Marines and pretty much any other model, I put glue on their feet. Actually, I have to cut this open. And then push the feet onto the base. It's just easier for me. And normally I don't add a whole lot of glue in case I ever want to like take it off the base again. But since this guy is going on a textured base, you might want to add a little bit more than normal. Because it'll help fill in the gap between the bottom of his feet and the actual base. But it's on there. It's on there now. And if you hit it with instant set, even better. But that is looking like it's going to hold. So this is pretty much the finished product. I think it looks a whole lot better than the original base, mine the feet mark, so those were covered, but he looks more size appropriate, and the basing itself actually looks a lot better. I'm probably going to go take him outside into the sun too and take a few more pictures of his base.